Welcome to another live episode, guys. Welcome. Today is going to be a very short day, but it's going to be an exciting day. If it's your first time on the channel, do me a favor, hit the like video. You're going to like this video ahead of time. Stop being slow and like it. Subscribe to the channel as well, and go ahead and hit the notification bell, and just also go ahead and share the video with your friend because you know the video is going to be good. So today I actually want to talk about something which is interesting. Is how many of you actually, if you can take a guess, what do you think is the average attention span? What's 2023 from 2000 to year 2023, so 23 years now. What do you think is the average attention span? Is our attention span increasing, or is our attention span actually declining? Is there an increase, or is there a decline in our attention span? I want you to kind of take a look at that and actually like do some basis points. And as you guys join later, when you watch this video later, or if you're watching this video right now, just kind of think about it from a perspective of what do you think is the average attention span. Now, before I go and reveal that number to you guys, let's go and talk about something. So recently, I noticed something, right? We all know the famous app TikTok. We all know TikTok. TikTok is a phenomenal app for promotion. I don't recommend you do it, and because you could be on your phone for hours just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then get lost in time. So why did I decide to talk about this? So the other day I was, I was scrolling through my phone and I realized, there was a short video. I think it was like a 2-minute video, but I just scrolled through and I just kept fast forwarding, I couldn't but just bring myself to sit down and actually like watch the video. I couldn't bring myself to actually sit down and actually watch the video. So I was like, okay, this is kind of insane. This is crazy. So as everything pretty much like I was like, you know what, I devoted the time. I'm like, I'm going to sing, I'm going to watch. It's only 2 minutes. Okay, so I watch it. And I notice the next app I go into the Instagram Reels, right? I'm going through Reels and I'm just like scrolling through. And then the same deal, I'm noticing that my attention span is like getting smaller and smaller. And it's like my attention span is just shrinking. So I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. So I'm like, I'm someone who likes to read books. I love reading books. So I was reading my book, and usually I read about every morning. I read about 10 or 15 pages in the morning. But for some reason, I've only been able to do 5, and this is personally on me. But I'm like, okay, what is going on? Because it seems like there's something is different. Why am I like, what would I call it, for lack of a better word? Why am I just not able to do what I was able to, which is basically for the longest period of time, actually just consistently read is what I've been doing. So I'm like, all right. So I started researching, started studying, like, okay, what has been a change in my habits? Then I noticed something. I've been spending a little bit more time on social media. And that's why I was like, social media is frying your brain. It's frying my brain. It's frying everybody's brain, right? And I want you guys to look at this study. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I want you guys to take a look at take a listen to this. All right.
Growing up, I used to watch this show called Sesame Street. The thing about Sesame Street is when you're watching TV as a kid, Sesame Street gives you a story over 30 minutes. So my attention span was 30 minutes. But now if you look at things like apps, what we notice is that first there were blogs. And in order to engage with blogs, you had to read 3 pages. And that has now turned into Twitter, 160 characters. We started with YouTube, right, where people used to make 20-minute videos. Now we have TikTok, which is like 60 seconds or less.
You guys better, let's make sure if you tune out this video right now, then your attention span is not good. So you got to watch the whole thing to make sure you have good attention span. I see you.
As the pace of technology is getting quicker, our brain no longer needs to pay attention for extended periods of time. And if you watch your child on an iPad, they scroll quickly, right? They get bored of something, they click on the next thing, they click on the next thing. They kind of give in to their boredom, and they rely on the technology to give them stimulation instead of training their mind to pay attention to something for an extended period of time. So I think we are seeing a technological impact on our attention as a whole. When I was,
And that's it. And he hit the nail on the head. He hit the nail on the head, guys. There is the average attention span is declining. Okay, so remember I told you guys I was going to share with you what the average attention span was, right? I was going to share with you what the average attention span was. So to share with you, we're going to look at a study, okay? We're going to look at a study. So this study is going to be, we're just going to look at just a strict bullet point because I don't know what your attention span is, but let's go ahead and get this back up on the screen here. So according to, ignore the ads, guys. For some reason, there's always ads. It's trying to get me to pay some money. It says the study led by Microsoft Canada on how technology, pretty much remember what it was saying, has affected attention span, found that since the year 2000, the average attention span of a person dropped from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. 12 seconds to 8 seconds. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I believe this study was done a few years back. This study was done a few years back, and it found that the attention span actually declined. So what that means is, if you're talking to somebody, just know that they're only paying attention to you for 8 seconds. Most of you are only going to watch 8 seconds of this video. Snap out of it. Snap out of it. Pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. Right? Because you got to think about it. What is the necessity of attention span? Like, where does the attention span kind of comes into play? You got to pay attention to people around you. You got to pay attention to the environment. You got to sit down and study. If your attention span is something that is being, because people are everywhere vying for your attention. You're gonna scroll up this video, and as you scroll up this video, you're gonna find somebody on Instagram, find someone on TikTok, you're gonna find something else that's just gonna basically take your attention span away, and then he's just gonna go into this position where you're gonna be back to square one again, talking, not achieving your goals, not basically living the life of fulfillment that you want, not basically fulfilling and actually realizing your dreams and vision. Because keyword, attention span. Keyword again, attention span. So now, one of the key reasons, one of the key things is we have to understand. So you got to ask yourself this question: is, if my attention span is 8 seconds, and there's actually another video here that talks about most people's attention spans actually declined from 8 seconds to about 2 to 3 seconds, just based off of their social media usage. Right? Most people can't even pay attention. We're posting a video on TikTok, and TikTok goes, it's best to split this video in half as a 60-second video for better retention. Just basically saying that people can't even pay attention to a 60-second video. A 60-second video, your attention span is getting even shorter. Now it has to get to the point where it's like people can only pay attention to something that's like, you know, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. My God, try to get someone to watch a 15-minute video. Try to watch a 15-minute video. This podcast, usually when I do the podcast, usually an hour long, but I did the math, and when I did shorter podcasts, I noticed when I did a shorter podcast, I had more engagement, more spread, more reach, because most people, like, it's a 15-minute video, especially on the replays, versus a 15-minute video. And then whenever I have a guest on, I do an hour-long podcast. But with you guys, I'm going to do what I call the 15 minutes with the Really Great Live. 15 minutes to 30 minutes. I'm going to go live, and we're going to talk about something, and which means I'm going to keep my topic short, and then we're going to kind of expand from there. Because in reality, attention spans are getting even shorter. People cannot pay attention anymore. Now, what are key things in which your attention span is needed? I remember I've said it. You have pretty much your family, you have pretty much your kids, you have pretty much your job, right? Now, another thing in which social media has actually done and actually gone ahead and removed and affected the brain is, it's basically changed the way your brain processes, your brain releases dopamine, and it's also kind of made it in a way in which your reward system now is basically, how would I put it, is you stimulate your mind. The video mentioned, and you stimulate your mind and you stimulate your brain based off of what you consume on social media, right? Which is also kind of not even just social media, games. Most people are playing. I don't play video games. One of the reasons why I don't play video games is because I know I'm going to like it. There's something called you have to understand your persona. There's something called an addictive persona, right? Which is people who have a tendency to get addicted to things. I never tried drugs, never tried anything at all, because I know my persona, and I'm like, I don't want to be caught up in anything like that. Plus, I grew up with very, very strict parents, so I never really played around with anything like that. Another thing is, my girlfriend mentioned it. She goes, "You don't watch cheap TV shows." She's like, "Why don't you watch TV shows?" And then one day we were scrolling through something. She goes, now I know why you don't watch TV shows." And I was like, "Why?" She goes, "Because you're gonna end up liking it." And that's exactly it. Most of my shows, like, they're so good. I'm like, I know when I do, I'm gonna like it. And what's gonna happen is, it's going to end up taking a priority in my life again, away from things that I have to be doing. Okay. And that's the same thing in which I want you to think about it in your life, in your perspective. It's like, if you are approaching things from a perspective, if you're approaching things from a holistic perspective, you're approaching things from a view of like, oh my God, you know, um, I have to get this done. But then again, it's like, you can't even sit down there to get it done, because your reward system is, for lack of a better word, it's fried. Your brain is pretty much relying a lot on the dopamine that you get from your cell phone. And not even that, we have your declining attention span. You have the fact that your reward systems are getting, again, twisted. The fact that people found more fulfillment from spending their phone online than actually go out there and interact with other people. So which makes you become socially awkward. Okay, that's the summary. It makes you socially awkward. If you're noticing that you're socially awkward and you're not able to interact with people, then you have to think about it from a perspective of, it's kind of the same thing as to, if you notice, most people that work in tech, especially if you're in programming. Like, I'll give you guys a story. So a few months back, I was in DC. I was in an elevator, And I got into the elevator, and there was a nice guy. He was neatly dressed, and I said hi, and he kind of looked at me, kind of like, and then he just kind of like, he was to himself, was like a little bit like timid, and then he's like hi, and I was like, hey man, so how's it going? I was like, he's like fine. I was like, cool, nice. I'm like, what brings you? He's like, I'm in for the conference. I'm like, cool, cool. What do you do? He's like, um, I can't I work for, like, it's one of the defense companies. He's like, yeah, I think it's Boeing. I work for Boeing. He's like, yeah, he's like, I'm an engineer for Boeing. But he was and this guy would, I would say, minimum late 30s, early 40s, right? So socially awkward. I was like, interesting, fascinating. So I kind of thought to myself, I was like, all right, kind of felt weird because it felt like I was like having to get information out. But then I asked myself this situation: if I was an aerospace engineer for Boeing, would I react the same way he did? Yes, because all that's going to go in my head is just data and all that, but staring at a screen and designing programs and all the stuff they do in aerospace engineering. I don't want to say give a big shout out to people that what they do at Boeing. Phenomenal company, phenomenal everything that they do. So not talking anything about that. I'm just using that analogy for the most part to kind of bring and fine tune this video so you guys can understand the point I'm getting to. But just basically thinking about that, I was like, okay. So then think about it from a perspective of, imagine you spend 4 hours. Look at your screen time. Most phones, if you scroll down, my phone is all covered in water because for some reason I decided to go in the pool and it started raining, and then there's water, and then and then now my phone has water in it. But if you go somewhere, you scroll on your phone, you'll be able to find screen time, right? When you find screen time, or whatever screen time you find in your phone, I want you to look at it at how much time you spend in your phone, and look at how much time you spend with people. If the time you spend with your phone is more than the time you interact with people, then there's a problem. Okay. If you find that you're socially awkward, you cannot maintain eye contact for longer than 3 seconds, it's because, one, you're on your phone. Because what that does is, when you spend so much time in your phone, a lot of the experiences that you're seeing on the phone is, one, it's shutting your brain off. So most people do it for the concept of shutting their brain off. But then when you have to interact with someone, what it's doing is now it's basically getting you in your head. Whenever you're in your head, you don't perform as well when you interact with people or in social life or physical activities as opposed to when you're outside. I give you a scenario when you're in your head. So I'm not, I was on a jet ski for the first time ever. All right, so I was on a jet ski, and yeah, anyone who's been on, been on water know that you have to deal with waves, there's waves and all that stuff, right? So while I was on, right, I noticed that whenever I stared at the waves that were coming at me, I went in my head, and then I slowed down a little bit. But when I stayed outside and away, and I was like, oh, I swear, I'm enjoying myself. I'm not in my head. I'm actually enjoying the environment that I'm in. For some reason, it's like, boom, I'm going top speed. Not really top speed, but almost top speed, right? So, so that's kind of the whole concept of things, is whenever you're in your head, you don't necessarily perform as much as to when you're actually focusing on what's out there, focusing on something, actually aiming at something, actually doing that. And the reason why I'm bringing that to you is, you got to understand is to, you got to limit the time you spend on your phone. One of the things that I do is I hired a social media manager to help me with my social media platforms, because I noticed if I did it all myself, I spent a lot of time on my phone, and I didn't like spending a lot of time on my phone. I didn't like the concept of like being constantly on my phone and constantly like scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through TikTok, scrolling through whatever it may be. I didn't want to do that. So because of that, I was like, you know what? I don't want to spend any time on my phone at all. So it's kind of like, but then again, there's pros to being on there. Like for instance, for some reason, I don't know how I ended up on Instagram on a live. For some reason, I ended up on Instagram. But now, let's kind of reel it back in. So watch your attention span. Like I said, guys, this is going to be a 15-minute live. We're going to keep it short because a lot of people are going to watch this. And I want to see, we're actually going to do a test. I'm actually going to do a study. And I'm actually going to go ahead and maybe on the next live, based on how this video performs, I'm going to actually show you guys the metrics and look behind the scenes as to the data to see how many minutes people watch, and how many minutes in on a 15-minute live, how many minutes people watch, and how many minutes people watch on an hour live. Okay. I'm actually going to compare the data. And the reason I want to do this is I want you to understand that less is more now. Okay. When it comes to the internet, is imagine you do a 15-minute video, but you do 50 a couple 15-minute videos, but you basically do four of them versus doing an hour one video. You don't have as much content that's out there. So that's one thing there that's out there, guys. Is one, we'll do a 15-minute live. We're going to launch this. I want to see exactly how this performs. Leave a comment if you watch the whole thing, and like the video as well, guys. And like I said, this is a new metrics we're trying, and you guys know we're pretty much part of a family here, and it's great having everyone on. And this is, like I said, this is a new segment called the Real League Real Life. 15 minutes where we'll cover one single topic or two topics. And today we spoke about how social media is pretty much killing our attention, and how our attention has gone from 12 seconds to 8 seconds, right? To now up to 2 to 3 seconds. So which means if you cannot focus on something for more than 8 seconds, because the average, I'm going to tell you this, the average attention span of a goldfish, I'm going to show you guys, the average attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds. The average attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds. I want to share this with you guys so you guys see it. Is 9 seconds. So you're like, it's 9 seconds right here. Okay, it's 9 seconds. So what does that mean? That means that if you cannot pay attention for longer than 9 seconds, then a goldfish has more attention span than you. Okay, and I'm 100% sure you're smarter than a goldfish, right? So prove me right, and that you're smarter than a goldfish, and watch the whole video, 15 and a half, 16-minute video, and show me that you're smarter than a goldfish. And it's a pleasure having everybody on. Like I said, guys, catch you on the next 15 minutes live with a real Igwe. I think that's probably it. Let me know if you guys think it's a catchy name, or you wanted me to come up with something else. It will come up with something else. It's a pleasure having everyone on. And everybody, like I say, for the most part, enjoy. Have a good day.